My name is Alex Lubarsky, and I've spent the last 20 years in and around healthcare. Originally, it was marketing doctors into medical centers around New York. My partner and I had a fairly large company doing that. And then about 5 years into it, I was diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis. And that became a lifelong passion of trying to resolve the underlying cause of that. When I went to all the doctors, the only thing they offered me was medication to suppress the symptom of my painful joints, or a cream to suppress the skin condition. But the more you suppress it, the worse it would become over time. So that's what I learned, and it didn't take a long time to figure that out. So what is a better way? Hopefully tonight we will introduce you to a better way, and you'll see it as clearly as Dr. Roberts and I see it, and Dr. Jimmy Killimitzoglou does. So I'm going to introduce you today to Dr. Roberts. She's a functional medicine doctor, and her focus is human optimization. Then I'll introduce you to Dr. Jimmy Killimitzoglou, who is a biomimetic dentist, and his specialty is to how do we optimize the oral cavity so it contributes to optimal function. And then we'll talk a little bit about our healthcare system and the problems with it. I'll introduce you to Gene Scala. I met Gene probably about 10 years ago now. He was 105 at the time. I met him at a bowling alley where he wanted to meet me. And he was bowling every Wednesday. He played the sax, and he makes his own clothes. So Gene was something special. So we'll talk a little bit about longevity. Then I want to introduce you to Integrative Genetic Solutions, which is really a transformative approach to proactive human optimization care. And then we'll do a question and answer sessions with Dr. Roberts, Dr. Jimmy Killimitzoglou, and myself. And I'll be giving away a copy of this book, The Science and Technology of Growing Young by Sergey Young. And it's fabulous for many different reasons. I'm almost done reading it, studying it. And it's really so exciting, the direction that our healthcare system is heading into. So I'll be giving a copy away a little bit later on. Meanwhile, let's see. Meanwhile, I wanted to show you this. This would be your life. It's pretty strong. It's finite, as you can see, and it's made up of material that we don't really know what it's made from and where it came from and how it came to be. But here it is. So you have your life, but the other side of this bar is your health. A lot of times we think that our health and our life are different because there's life insurance and then there's health insurance, but they're one and the same. It's two sides of the same piece of metal, same coin, if you will. So on this life of yours, you have all the things that you love, that you enjoy doing, that you are excited about, your children, your family, your friends, travel, going out to restaurants, material things, if you like nice shoes or fine cars, if you like swimming in the ocean or getting, lying around on the beach or drinking pina coladas, whatever it is that you love about life, it's built on this foundation. So the problem comes in when we become vitamin D depleted, and we're depleted for decades on end. So that puts a little stress on our health and ultimately our life. But we're pretty resilient. We can put up with some nonsense. Then we become heavy metal toxic because we got amalgam implants, and then those implants begin leaching into our bloodstream and our tissue. And then our digestion system starts acting up. So it becomes leaky, inflamed. We're not absorbing the nutrition out of the food that we're eating. We become inflamed, and that adds more stress onto our health and well-being. And then we work under tremendous amount of stress in our life in addition to that. So you have stressful moments in your life. We all do. somebody passes away unexpectedly, somebody betrays you, somebody mistreats you in business, and more stress and more pressure is put on your health and your life. Now, the healthcare industry that we're in today doesn't engage here. It has no interest in engaging with you here, because the only time your medical doctor through your health insurance can actually get paid is once you're already chronically sick and dealing with some kind of really unpleasant condition. So you're dealing with all this stress and you're dealing with all this tension, and then eventually it snaps. Now here is when the medical system comes in. And this is where you need all this medical intervention, all these brilliant doctors and scientists and chemists to figure out, how do we put you back the way you ultimately were? To keep you well doesn't take much, but then to repair you once you're broken is very difficult, and sometimes I would say impossible. All right, so let's talk a little bit about our healthcare system. So our healthcare system right now is entirely focused on the indefinite management of chronic disease. And whether you're for socialized medicine or against socialized medicine, it doesn't really matter too much, because we have socialized medicine. And you say, well, Alex, come on, this is America. We don't really have socialized medicine, but we have Medicare and Medicaid that's government controlled, which is pretty much socialized. And then you have private insurance. Now, the private insurance has some 2,000 mandates, governmental mandates, that tell the insurance companies what they must cover. So once you put your money into the government decides how they're going to allocate and what it's going to be paying for. When you put your money into the health insurance companies, they're also going to decide what they're going to allocate this money for. And with the government intervention, it just becomes another bureaucratic juggernaut that pays for hair transplants and abortions and sex reassignment surgery and every other kind of thing. And that's why you're asking, how come health insurance is so expensive and I'm getting less and less for it from one year to the next? That's why, because it's entirely focused on the management of disease. And what they did is they inadvertently turned our disease into the modern day gold rush. $4 trillion a year we're spending on the management of chronic disease. And the more money we spend, the more disease we tend to have. So then let's talk about Gene Scala here. So Gene, like I said, I met him about 10 years ago now. He was 105. He celebrated his 107th birthday, and then I lost track of what happened with Gene Scala. But Gene was awesome. I met him at this bowling alley, and he was chatting to me, and I said, listen, who do we talk to about getting you down to the conference that I was organizing at the time? He said, well, you got to call my niece. And I said, well, how do I find her number? He goes, her number is 375-0654. Like out of the top of his mind, he knew his niece's number. He was sharp. He was having fun. He enjoyed his life. He was the center of attention. People loved him, celebrated. Amazing. So the question is, do we want to focus on longevity? Does anybody want to live to be 120 or 105? Some people will say, no, they'll buck at it. I don't want to be 120. But in 1900s, people only lived to about 40. Can you imagine if you came up to me and said, listen, would you want to live to 80? And they'd be, oh, life is too hard. I don't want to live to 80. No way. 40 is plenty for me. We're going to be dead much longer than we're alive. So what I say is that focus on longevity. And this way we can avoid a lot of these chronic illnesses that we're dealing with now, because we're focused on the chronic illnesses. There was also, I don't know if you know, Joanne Clement. She was a French woman, lovely woman. She lived to be 122 years and 164 days. So she gave up smoking about 4 years before she passed away, but she was a chain smoker all her life. It just shows you that the human potential is much more than we're being told today. And if we focus on the longevity, then we can avoid a lot of the chronic illnesses. If we can push those chronic illnesses way into our furthest ages, and then be maybe sick for a couple of years and then, go on to the next program. but that's Gene Scala. This is Integrative Genetic Solutions. So I think it's the most amazing thing. It was created by John Orban, who is a mathematical genius. And John was not really interested in healthcare. His company optimized banking. So when the bank needed to make a loan and they would process the loan, it would take a month to do it. John came in with his company and they created a computer program that would crunch all the numbers and do the same thing in minutes. So John was in mid-30s, was riding his bicycle, got hit by a van. He ended up in a hospital. And when he came out of the hospital, his health started to spiral downward. Brain fog, chronic fatigue, poor sleep, no energy, no excitement, nothing. So he found a doctor finally, after going from one to the next, who actually helped him optimize himself. He was one of the top human chemistry experts in the world. And after that, it took him 8 months and a small fortune. He said, listen, why don't we do this? Why don't we create a program that takes all available information on what it takes the human body to function optimally, and then correlate that with your blood work? It creates a report with lots of suggestions, hundreds. It identifies any deficiency, any toxicity, any inflammation, any food allergies. And then we pair you up with a doctor who's going to work with you to optimize all these things, to make sure that all your levels are where they're supposed to be. It's kind of like when you drive your car and the engine is low, if you're leaking oil out of your engine, you have to make sure that you put engine oil into that car. Because if you don't, the engine eventually is going to cease if you're running a couple of quarts low. So you want to make sure you have as much oil in that car as necessary at all times. But what would you call a system? Let's say this mechanic who could replace a seal on your engine where the oil was leaking, and it cost $100, but he didn't want to replace the seal. He wanted to replace the engine, so he didn't tell you about the oil leak. So you had your oil leaking for days and years and on, and eventually it gets stranded on the side of the road. Well, that's kind of the way our healthcare system works. Nobody wants to tell you to take enough vitamin D so that you can prevent colon cancer. But colon cancer, once you get in there and they're doing the chemotherapy and they're doing the surgery and they're doing all this stuff and all the medications and the drugs that come along with that, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. So there are what's called perverse incentives in our system of care. That the only time the system kicks in is once you're already sick. So I don't want to say that there's a conspiracy. I don't want to say that doctors don't care. Most doctors that become doctors, they care. They want to be taking care of people. It's a noble profession. So, but the incentives in the system undermine their goal to achieve that. And this book by Sergey Young is pretty awesome. I'm going to give away a couple of copies during the question and answer session. He is an investor. So, like Elon Musk and Richard Branson and Bezos, all these guys, all these wealthy guys are putting their money into space travel. They all want to go into space. And that's amazing. I mean, 10 years ago, we wouldn't have imagined that a private citizen can create a spaceship and go into space. It's a remarkable, remarkable thing. But when you put enough money into the system, then it becomes possible. Anything becomes possible. So I'm going to give you this book. It's going to open your eyes like you can't imagine. And so longevity is what I'm saying. All these people now want to invest in longevity and human optimization care. So it's going to be a very different kind of healthcare system once these guys get a hold of it. So I'm going to give you a copy, and I know you're going to love it. All right. So that's what it is. I'm going to introduce our first speaker. Okay. All right. So our first speaker graduated from Binghamton University, cum laude, with a degree in psychobiology. She went on to complete a dual degree in osteopathic medicine and clinical nutrition in 2008. She studied modalities like trigger point injections and functional medicine. Certifications she has in chelation, IV therapies, acupuncture, essential oil immunotherapy, Tai Chi, Thai yoga massage, energetics, and Reiki. She's board certified in family practice and worked as a physician, medical director, hospitalist, and science of human optimization practitioner. Our speaker practiced gymnastics for 9 years up to the national level, and then went on to become a fitness enthusiast, trying her hand in fitness competitions, personal training, teaching aerobics, and ultimately steering herself more towards wellness, healing, purification, yoga, meditation, and dance. It is my great pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Danielle Roberts. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Alex, for that lovely introduction. And I am so honored to be here, honestly, to listen to you speak every time with more passion and more fervor for what you hope to see in the world and what you're standing for, despite all of the momentum in a dissimilar direction. I'm honored to be here. So,
Thank you, Danielle, as I am too.
Thank you all for joining us. I will share my screen with you guys. So you have, okay, perfect. So as Alex said, my name is Danielle Roberts. I'm here for many, many reasons, but just, as I'm starting the talk with you guys today, I just want to open with a little question to get your minds turning and thinking. And, that is, actually, before I do that, do you guys see the little chat bar right there on top of your screen? Does everybody see that? Can you just say hi to me so I know that you guys can talk to me? I'm so used to speaking live and in person. I still haven't quite fully embraced this webinar thing, but we can at least talk back and forth to each other. Hey, Shelby, awesome. Hi, Candace, great. Awesome, Gagan, I see you there as well. Okay, so just make sure you guys can find that so you can chat back and forth, you can write questions, and then as I do the presentation, we can make it a little bit interactive. So, okay, so the first question I want to ask you guys is, how many of you guys think that the quality and the longevity of your life are really mostly based on your genetics? They were pre-written for you, and you don't have very much control over them. They're really predetermined. And how many of you think that most of your quality of life and longevity are based on the decisions that you make? Your diet, your exercise habits, your emotions, your thoughts, your belief systems, things that we have control and influence over. And how many of you might think that maybe it's somewhere in between, maybe 70%, 80%? Just go ahead and shout it out there in the chat so I get a sense of where everybody's at. Yeah, Shelby, a little bit of both, right? Yeah. So I guess the trick here is in my, maybe my entire life journey has kind of been exploring that line, pushing that edge. How much of it do you just surrender to and you just accept and you just live your life and you enjoy being in a body, and that's both the limitations of it and pushing the limits of it. And how much of it do we really have the power to influence the quality of our life and improve not only the length, but the quality of the years that we have here. So, Jason, based on your decisions and choices and epigenetics. Yeah, we've got some educated people here too along the way. They've come to know epigenetics and all these different things. Yeah, we'll touch upon all that stuff. So, so there's another great doctor and I guess spiritual teacher of many ways, Deepak Chopra. I'm sure many of you have heard of him. And he gave a great statistic, which I thought was interesting, which was that if both of your parents live to be 80 years old, then that adds about 3 years to your life. Okay, that's pretty good, right? They both have longevity genes. I'll take the 3 years. But if you learn how to master your diet, your nutrition, your detox pathways, your stress response through meditation and breathing, if you learn how to work with your thoughts and your belief systems, you can add anywhere from 30 to 50 years to your life. And I would venture to say those are quality years, kind of like Alex's friend Jean there in the picture. You know, if you're really embracing life and pushing those limits, you can create a very different experience for yourself. And all of those things will influence which genes are turned on and which genes are turned off. So I'm not going to have you guys take my word for it, but you know, similarly, I'll always say question for yourself, test it, find out, measure. But I will share a little bit with you guys about my story and why I have come to believe this, you know, that we do have quite a bit of power over the quality of life we lead. So there I am, probably 10 years old, 9 years old. Aren't I cute? And as you can see, I was always kind of testing the limits of what my physical body could do. My parents' hearts were always in their throat. And here I am hanging from a tree and at the top of the playground. And I was just very happy to do so, to test to see what I could do and what my physical body was capable of. There you can see in the background of this picture, my dad builds houses. So there's our house he was building in the background there. So I was quite happy to be, my mom is looking in here. I'm actually down here in Florida with my parents. My dad had a little surgery and did wonderful. So she's just checking the pictures here. But so there I am at 10 years old, kind of testing my limits. And as I grew up, my mom put me in dance class, which turned into a gymnastics class. And I started at 5 years old and did gymnastics probably till about 13 years old, and made it all the way up to a national level. I qualified for nationals, and really I was working out 3 hours a night and competing on weekends. And it was wonderful, but it was, again, another experience of me really testing the limits of my body and what it was capable of. And in those situations, you learn a whole lot. So you get to see not only physically, but how does the nutrition play in? How do your thoughts play in? How does your mindset play in? And it was I was 13 years old, and I wound up with stress fractures in both ankles, and I tore the ligaments in both of my ankles, and I was on crutches for about a year. And I decided at that point that I was going to stop doing gymnastics. It was right around the time I qualified for nationals. And, you know, my dreams of becoming an Olympic athlete were no longer, you know, everything I had kind of been working towards started to fade away. And I chose not to do that anymore, and to see, you know, have an experience of what a normal high school life would be. But while I was on crutches that year, I came to experience a lot of my limitations, not just physically through the injuries that I was having, but also mentally and emotionally. I had different struggles, and not having this goal or this dream to pour myself into anymore, I started to struggle emotionally. I started to have, I started to become a little bit lost, I guess. And, you know, I found certain ways to cope. And I think all of us have experienced different times in our lives using coping mechanisms that maybe aren't the best ones for our physical body. But food became a wonderful friend of mine. And I used it at different times to help myself get through different emotional struggles. And, you know, I was still straight A student, kind of needing to be perfect, all these different things to help myself feel better. But ultimately inside, I was feeling lost and struggling at the time. So during that period of time, there was a bunch of overeating. My nutrition was off. I wasn't exercising. I was on crutches. I was going through puberty. So my body was going through a whole lot of changes. And over the next few years, I continued to have these struggles. And I had created quite a condition. You know, I had abdominal pain regularly. I had constipation. I had thyroid issues. My hair was starting to fall out. I had a fungal infection that I created across the skin on my stomach. I had reflux and heartburn. And this was all as a high school as a high school student. I was about 19 years old. I went to the GI doctor at that time, and he shared with me, you know, he did an endoscopy, he looked to see what was going on. And at that time, basically the conventional wisdom at the time, or the conventional recommendations, were he had seen that I had a hiatal hernia. So my stomach was kind of coming up through my diaphragm and compromising my digestion. And he suggested that I either take proton pump inhibitors or acid blockers, essentially pills, to decrease the acid in my stomach for as long as I needed to be able to stop the reflux, to, in conventional medicine, prevent any type of esophageal cancer from the acid coming up. But I would be on those pills potentially for life, and I was 19 years old, or potentially have a surgery to reduce the hiatal hernia that I knew deep in my mind that I was causing by overeating and purging. So I was confronted with a very difficult situation. You know, here I am, 19 years old, love being in a physical body, love doing gymnastics, love being alive in a lot of ways. And I have I have this situation where I now see that I'm destroying this wonderful body that God gave me, or I got in, you know, whatever way we come to be here. And I could either decide to deny the fact that I have control over what I put in my mouth, how I deal with my emotions, the thoughts I choose, the belief systems I come to have, and just take medicine to kind of squash the symptoms and continue on coping in the way that I was. Or I could choose to own my behavior and make a change. And it was at that time that I loved my body enough, thank God. I loved my life enough, thank God, that I chose to really take responsibility for my decisions and start to try to figure out how I could heal what I broke, what I was breaking. And I found different ways to work with my emotions. I found different ways to work with my stress. I found different ways to relate to my parents. I found different ways to eat. I had to, I think most of the American diet, I was eating cereal and milk for breakfast, not the sugary cereals, but, Rice Krispies and Cheerios, which again is just dead and can last years on the shelf and has no life in it, but is sold to us as this magical food for kids. Peanut butter and jelly for lunch, some sort of vegetable and meat for dinner. And, I'd come home from gymnastics, eat ice cream and go to bed. So as you can imagine, my body was not optimally functioning. So I started on my journey and I found different ways to start to heal all of these different things: my thyroid, my hair, the fungal infection, the candida in my system, the leaky gut, all of these different things. And I've spent pretty much a lifetime coming to understand how my body works, how my emotions work, and how my thoughts and my belief systems work. And I'm so grateful for that moment, that fork in the road, that reality check that I had, where I had an option to go down the conventional road and ignore the choices I was making, or to really choose to struggle, to put the work in, and to figure out how I could work with my body to create a better life. And this is a beautiful quote by Andy Andrews, which says, "A committed heart will search for a solution. The undecided heart searches for an escape." And I do think that this is an illustration in many ways of what our conventional system could offer in terms of escapism versus really accepting the reality and doing the work to change our lives. And that's not to say conventional medicine is bad. And there's times it's very, very useful and it's very important that we use it. But it's important also not to delude ourselves in any way. So this is me now at 39 years old, almost 40. And I practice yoga regularly. I have specific practices I do. Like I said, I've changed my nutrition. I've worked with different things. The rash or fungal infection on my skin that was there is no longer there. And I'm probably in the best shape of my life at this point and much more balanced than I was back then. So there's hope. So I share this with all of you because I've spent a lifetime kind of figuring these things out for myself. And I hope that all of the wisdom, all of the struggles I've had, all of the different things I've come to learn, I can kind of package and make simple and pass that wisdom on to you guys. Of course, not all in a 20-minute talk here, but that I can at least pass down some pearls or point you in the right direction to how you can either further your journey along wherever you are or begin on your journey. And I'm going to start by sharing a little bit about the cells that make up every single organ system and tissue and part of our body. So this beautiful picture here is a picture of the smallest functional unit of life that exists on the planet, and that is our cells. And these tiny little cells require certain nutrients to be able to live, to be able to be alive. And each little cell has organelles inside. They're like little organs within the cell. And all of those little organelles have different jobs. The nucleus makes the DNA. You have your cell membrane, which allows for exchange in and out of the cell, nutrients in, wastes out. And if the cell membrane isn't fluid enough, doesn't have enough omega-3 fatty acids or proper phospholipid balances from our diet, that cell membrane can become rigid and it cannot allow for things to pass in and out properly. Nutrients won't get in and toxins won't get out, which, as you can imagine, would affect all these other little organelles in here, like the mitochondria, which make energy for us, and a bunch of other organelles that help our cells to function well. So what do you guys think? Here's the interactive part. You guys ready? Find your chat box. What do you guys think every single cell in your body needs to be able to survive? What kind of things do they need? Oxygen, sunlight, vitamins. Yes, micronutrients, excellent. These are all you. Vitamin D is a vitamin. Yes, absolutely. Perfect. So wonderful. So you need oxygen, you need vitamins, you need minerals, you need proteins, you need fats, and you need carbohydrates. Did I say water? You need water. 80% of our body, a lot of percent of our body is water. So you need all of those things. And I'm sorry, I'm distracted because I just read these quotes, and it's very nice to hear that you guys think I look younger even than a few months ago in those photos. I feel very flattered. So I apologize, I'm getting distracted. It's very sweet. So yes, we need those 7 things. And what do you guys think happens if our cells, these tiny little functional living units, don't have all of those nutrients? What do you think happens? Any ideas? Come on, guys. There we go. We get tired. Yes, I mean, yes, we get tired. No one's ever said that on these talks, but yes, we get tired. We can become sad. Our mood can change. The cells can die. They can mutate. They can become dysfunctional or acidic. Absolutely. But you set the stage for the cells to function less than optimally. And they eventually will die, but they could also mutate. They could become cancer cells, but essentially they're a breeding ground for chronic disease at this point, right? So if your cells aren't functioning optimally, your body's not functioning optimally. So as I mentioned, these tiny little cells that I showed you a picture of, they come together and they make up the tissues in your body, whether they be the skin tissues, the muscle tissues, any tissue you have in your body. And then, do you guys see the chat box on the screen, or you just see my presentation? You just see my presentation, right? Probably just the presentation. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So those tissues come together and they create our organs, whether they're our stomach, our heart, our lungs. Those organs come together and they create organ systems. So here you see our whole digestive system from our mouth all the way down to our anus. And then those organ systems come together and they make up our whole entire body. So every single part of our body is made up of these amazing, vibrating, energetic cells. So we want to take care of those cells. And what do you think? So again, we talked about the 7 factors that your cells need. What do you guys think happens if your cells become deficient? And we already talked about this, so I'll go through it fast. But like you said, they can become diseased, dysfunctional, not work as well, eventually die, right? So I'm going to go through just one nutrient, okay? We're gonna look at vitamin D. There are a whole lot of nutrients. There's, I think, 13 vitamins and 20 something minerals that your body needs to function optimally. But I'm just going to look at the impact of one. And after I go through that impact, you guys will surmise if just one vitamin can have this impact. Imagine if we optimize the function of all of those different vitamins and minerals and the impact that that could have on your cells functioning and your body's functioning. So here we're just going to look at vitamin D. And if we look at vitamin D, you'll see here, guys, that if you're less than 10 is very severely deficient, but let's just look at less than 20%. If you have less than 20 nanograms per milliliter, you have a 75% greater risk of colon cancer. Anybody here want colon cancer? Me neither. Me neither. And I've had some really close family members, let's say they're definitely family members to me, go through colon cancer. And you know, the stress on the family, the stress on them, the stress on their body, the cost, the you know, everything that goes into dealing with a disease like that is very difficult. The emotional drain, everything that goes along with that. Now, 75% decreased risk of colon cancer in a supplement that costs about $26 on average per bottle. So over your lifetime, that's a little bit of an investment. But when you look at the cost of the hospitals, the medicines, the surgeries, the time off work your family members take off to take care of you, all of the different things that go into what happens when we get sick, I think the investment is far worth the dividends that it pays off. And again, this is just one nutrient, and there's many more. So then if we look at just deficient vitamin D, so less than 30 nanograms per milliliter, you have increased calcium loss from your bones and osteoporosis, poor wound healing, increased muscle pain, increased joint and back pain, a greater risk of depression, diabetes, schizophrenia, migraines, autoimmune diseases, allergies. Again, anyone want to sign up for any of these things? So you guys are all taking your vitamin D, right? Okay. Just reading chat. Okay. Yeah, we all have people that cancer has touched their lives. Absolutely. So now if we start to get to suboptimal levels, we still at suboptimal between 50 and 90 seem to have twice the risk of heart attacks, increased high blood pressure, 3 times the risk of multiple sclerosis. And now if we get to optimal levels, we start to slow the cancer growth if we have an existing cancer, or have a 50% reduction in breast cancer and a decreased risk of all solid cancers in the body. So 50% reduction as compared to a 75% increase. And that's just with vitamins, with one vitamin. So again, there are very, very, very many other vitamins I could go through. I'm not going to go through every single one of them right now, but you know, suffice it, you can see them all here. Vitamin E, little calcium, you know, osteoporosis, chromium, insulin resistance, decreased fertility, magnesium, fatigue, cramps, numbness, personality changes, zinc. You can have poor wound healing. Zinc is huge right now with COVID protection, hair loss, diarrhea, all sorts of things. So each and every single one of these vitamins has a major impact on those cells' health, those little tiny cells, and our entire body. Okay, so that's what happens when we're deficient. Now, what happens if you become toxic? What do you guys think? Oh, wait a second, I skipped. Well, That's okay. What happens? What do you guys think happens if your cells become toxic? So there's not getting enough nutrients, but then there's also having waste build up in the cells and not being able to get rid of those. So what do you guys think happens when that happens? You have to cleanse. Yeah, I mean, definitely cleansing would be very, very helpful. Again, you have a lack of energy. You feel clogged up. Your body's clogged up. If you get clogged up or you have to cleanse, what are the effects? Like, what typically do you guys experience if you're toxic? Fatigue, impaired fat loss, joint pain. Yeah, exactly. These are all things that can happen if you're toxic. Brain fog, absolutely. So just as if we were deficient in nutrients, if we're toxic, it has equally as a similar effect on our cells in our body as it does if we're deficient. So again, I'm not going to go through every single toxin because there's a whole bunch of them. There's heavy metals, there's pesticides, there's herbicides, there's organophosphates, there's all sorts of different chemicals that can affect our immune system, our cells, all of those things. But again, our goal is to make sure every single one of these little cells functions optimally. So what we're going to look at today is just mercury, one heavy metal. There's many heavy metals. There's aluminum and cadmium and all sorts of different things. But if we just look at mercury and we just look at the effects of that, then, oops, what happened here? Okay, so if we just look at mercury, then we can look at the effects of that. And again, you guys can extrapolate what those effects would be across the board with all of the other toxins as well. So here, mercury, you're exposed to mercury in a bunch of different ways. Fish is one way, dental amalgams is another, and Dr. Jimmy is going to talk much more about that. So I'll leave most of that to him. Vaccinations.
Dr. Roberts, we can't see your screen.
Oh no. Hold on. Thank you, Dr. Jimmy. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, so again, you guys we're all exposed to mercury through fish, eating fish, dental amalgams, which again, like I said, Dr. Jimmy's going to talk more about. Vaccinations, early paints were filled with different types of mercuries, and coal burning power plants. So that's in our air. And again, we can't avoid all of these things, but we can optimize how our body detoxes and we can minimize our exposure. So these are just some of the, I know it's a little blurry and there's a lot here, so I'll just read you a few of them. Don't try to squint and read them all, but this is what some of the effects could be if you're mercury toxic. So unexplained irritability, constant or very frequent periods of depression, numbness and tingling, frequent urination, chronic fatigue, cold hands and feet, poor memory and brain fog. How many of you are kind of going like, I didn't think there was anything wrong with, I just figured I had that. And that was just what happens when you get old, right? Like, how many of you just think that that's normal? Constipation, difficulty making decisions, maybe some tremors of your hands and feet or muscle twitches, some leg cramping, ringing in your ears, getting out of breath easily. You're like, yeah, I'm just out of shape. Maybe, but maybe not. If your cells are functioning optimally, if they have the nutrients and they're detoxifying, a lot of these symptoms can go away. And the quality of your life and the length of your life would be dramatically improved. So again, there are many other toxins and many other ways that we're exposed. So I'm not going to go through all of them. But just if mercury just has all of those effects, imagine what the other ones have. So just some chronic diseases that are associated with mitochondrial dysfunction and toxicity, diabetes, cancer, heart disease, Parkinsonism, chronic fatigue and weight gain. A lot of people have been trying to lose weight for years and they don't understand exactly why they're not able to, or why they're just gaining weight unexplainably without changing their diet or exercise. Maybe again, blame it on age. But a lot of times when I detoxify these people and they start to let go of the toxins in their body, they start to lose weight. Now, why do you guys think that is? Do you guys know where, your body's pretty smart. Do you guys know where it prefers to store some of these toxins, or how your body compensates to store some of these toxins? Mercury, the toxin that does it all. Yeah, in the fat, yeah, I mean, the fat cells, exactly. So your body's pretty smart. Your fat is an organ, and your fat does secrete hormones, and it does modulate different functions, but it's this great place that your body can figure out where to put these toxins without putting them in your brain, without putting them in your heart or your other organs. So you start to put on weight, and inexplicably to you, unbeknownst to you, it could be just that your body is taking in more toxins than it's able to get rid of. So if we optimize your detox pathways and we decrease your exposure and make sure you're getting the vitamins and nutrients you need to be able to help your cells survive, that weight gain all of a sudden goes away. So how can we start to optimize our bodies? I think we've kind of touched on that quite a bit. But what's one step you can take today? So I've given you a little bit of information about how our cells work. And if you think about those principles and how that works, what's one way you can start to make sure you're getting the proper nutrients you need, super simple, and decreasing your exposure to these toxins and maximizing your detox pathways in your body. Now, there is a bunch of classes and stuff I teach that can help take you through that process, but really something super simple that you guys can do is talk to Alex after this program, after this presentation. If you guys want to find out what your deficiency levels are, we have simple lab tests that can help us determine toxicity and deficiency. You know, some of us are aware and connected, and you can build that sensitivity and awareness over time, but we also have these great modern tests that we can use and optimize our body to be able to get there faster. So I will close with one other study that I absolutely love, because I think it drives the point home about genetics and our ability to influence our genes with our choices. And I don't know if any of you guys know this study, but it's a very cool study, and it's an epigenetic study. So Jason, you know, as you brought up epigenetics, here's your little treat here. If you may already know it, but this little pup here on the left, the yellow mouse, is obese, has like metabolic disease, essentially diabetic, heart disease prone, all sorts of different diseases that it's prone to. And this yellow mouse was fed methyl groups, methyl supplements that methylate your DNA. And basically all that means is, well, we don't have to worry about it. Basically the DNA is red. And similar to an app on your computer, you can shut certain apps or you can open certain apps. And when you methylate, when you take vitamins like B12, folate, or other supplements that have methyl groups, you can turn on or turn off certain apps. You can turn on or turn off certain genes. And when you give this mouse methyl groups or methyl, like B12, folate, other supplements like that, this yellow mouse gave birth to that brown mouse next to it. So that's actually its offspring. It looks nothing like mama, right? Looks nothing like mama. It's brown, it's smaller. And guess what? It's not prone to obesity. It's not prone to diabetes. It's not prone to hypertension and metabolic disease and all of the other diseases that mama was prone to. So imagine, you know, all you ladies out there and dads, you know, you guys certainly contribute and definitely support mom, but imagine if before you're pregnant, you can prepare your body for pregnancy. While you're pregnant, you can do things that would essentially create a completely different life path for your child by turning on or turning off certain genes with supplements. And not only can you do that in your offspring, but we can do that, you know, for ourselves in this lifetime. So I thought that's just a very impactful illustration of the power that we do have to impact our health, our children's health, with just taking some simple measures. And imagine if you do more, then obviously we can impact it more. So our inputs dramatically modify our DNA and therefore our destiny. We are the masters of our fate, not the victims of our genes. So I'll leave you guys with that. I just want to encourage all of you to continue to make the changes that you want to make in your life. Know that, you know, there's no guarantees, but every step you make in that direction has the ability to to dramatically change your life and the quality of your life. And you so are worth it. So thank you all. And I will definitely stick around to answer any questions you guys have.
Awesome, Dr. Roberts, thank you so much. Amazing, as usual, enlightening, passionate, fabulous. All right, let's see here. Great. All right, ladies and gentlemen, our keynote speaker graduated from the State University of New York School of Dental Medicine, Stony Brook in 2002. He then graduated magna cum laude from Adelphi University, attended a one-year oral implantology program at NYU College of Dentistry. Then he attended a two-year orthodontic continuum at the United States Dental Institute. He's the associate clinical faculty at SUNY Stony Brook School of Dental Medicine. He has extensive experience in sedation, implant surgery and restoration, as well as Invisalign, children's dentistry, single visit crowns, porcelain fillings, laser dentistry, biomimetic, cosmetic, and reconstructive dentistry. Our guest is a diplomat of the American Board of Oral Implantology. He's the past president of the Suffolk County Dental Society. And before becoming a dentist, Dr. Killimitzoglou worked as a chef. So he has a unique perspective about how nutrition affects the oral cavity. He's the founder of ESI Healthy Dentistry in Smithtown. It is my great pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Jimmy Killimitzoglou. Welcome.
Alex, thank you so much for your lovely introduction. Welcome, everybody. I hope that after today's talk, actually, I should say all three of us, Alex, Dr. Roberts, and myself, I hope you get something out of it. Let's see if I can share my screen. All right. So what I'd like to share with you today is a discussion about total body health through a dental prism. And when we think about total body health, many times we neglect to think about the oral cavity. But obviously, a lot of us have issues with our mouths. Some might be very, very small. Others could be more involved. And for some of us that do have more involved issues, we ask this question that you see here. You know, I brush my teeth. I try to take care of my mouth, but why me? Why do these things happen to me? And whether it's bad teeth or bad gums, bad breath, or extreme fear, something can actually keep us from having an optimum oral cavity. And no matter how hard some of these people try, they have disease, whether it's genetics or environment, whether it's gums or teeth. Well, which one is it? Is it genetics? Is it environment? Is it a little bit of both? We'll find out after today's talk. But first, let's think about common dental and medical issues. When you look at these things here, a lot of these happen all over the body, but they also happen in the mouth. And there is a correlation between dental issues and medical issues. So you can have generalized inflammation in the whole body, but not without having inflammation in the mouth, and vice versa. And I'll tell you why. You can have a biome imbalance in the mouth, but you can also have a biome imbalance, whether it's all over your skin or your GI tract. Acidity level is something that's really, really important. And in the mouth, when you have a very acidic environment, it actually breaks down enamel, which is the outside layer of your teeth. It's actually the strongest, the hardest substance in your whole body. It's harder than actual bone. So we will talk a little bit about bone integrity and immune function. But as far as cardiovascular health is concerned, when you look at the mouth, it's a very vascular area. When you look at it, the color of the gums and the cheeks are red because they have so many tiny little blood vessels. So the lining of our cheeks, the lining of our lips, our tongue, our gums are so vascular and so thin that things can actually permeate or enter into the bloodstream very, very easily. So a lot of times if you have angina, which is chest pain, or if you have the beginning of a heart attack, we take nitroglycerin, we put it underneath the tongue. Or we take some chewable aspirin, we chew it. Why do we chew it and not swallow it? Because when you crush this medication and you powderize it, right, it becomes like a powder, it actually goes into the bloodstream much faster. So when you need something to get fast into your bloodstream, like a certain type of medication, you want to put it under the tongue so it can get absorbed quickly. Well, that's a good thing. But what about bad things? What about toxins? What about bacteria? They can also enter the bloodstream, and it all starts in the mouth. We'll talk a little bit about brain health and digestion and how they all tie together. Because when you look at the mouth, it's not just a portal to the digestive system, and that's intuitive, right? When we think of the mouth, it's the first step, the first organ into our GI system, right? Digestive system. That's when we chew, that's called mastication, and that's when we have salivary enzymes that start breaking down foods. It's the beginning of the digestive process. But as I said before, it's a portal to the circulatory system as well. What about the respiratory system? When you take a deep breath through your mouth, that air goes into your lungs from the mouth, not from the nose. A lot of people are mouth breathers. Some people are snoring, or they have sleep apnea, and it all starts in the mouth. When you take a deep breath and you have bacteria in the mouth, those bacteria directly go into your lungs. So when you think about the elderly and they're in a nursing home or assisted living, and they don't have very good oral hygiene, what happens is all those bacteria can enter the lungs and cause serious lung infections. And the immune system, we have a lot of antibodies in saliva, and they protect us. So we also have a lot of lymph nodes all around the oral cavity. So the immune system actually has a base, so to speak, in the oral cavity. Some dental diagnoses, right? We talked a little bit about medical problems, but what about dental problems? These are very common dental problems. The first one you see here is called caries. That's the technical term for cavities. Metal toxicity is another one. We heard about mercury, and amalgam fillings, those are the metallic fillings, they are more than 50% mercury. You have teeth that are fractured, or you have this erosion phenomenon, which is almost like melting away of the enamel because of acid. If you look at this picture here, all the internal surfaces of the teeth are eroded or kind of melted away by acid, but not the external. So it can't be acid that I'm ingesting from the outside, it's acid from the inside. What does this sound like? Vomiting, right? So binging and purging, what kind of medical condition is that? Bulimia, right? So these patients basically trigger themselves so they can vomit, so they don't have anything in their stomach, because they constantly think that they're overweight, even though they might weigh less than 100 pounds. So when you look at the mouth and you can play detective, you can actually find the story. There's a story to be told. Are we listening? For example, this picture here, you have nursing bottle caries, which is basically baby rot. The bottom teeth are pristine, the upper teeth are all rotted away. Why? Well, when the child is holding a bottle with milk, which has sugar, or juice, their tongue protects the lower teeth, but the sugar constantly bathes these upper teeth, causing cavities. This patient here is grinding. Now, why are they grinding side to side? Is it because they're doing it at night, because they have sleep apnea and they're trying to move their jaw forward, which in turn will bring their tongue forward, which will actually open up your airway? Are they struggling to breathe at night, or is it just stress? So these are small little things, small clues that a true dental detective will look at to figure out what disease is underlying and how we can help them. And again, it's not just about teeth, it's about the rest of the body. When I look at this grinding, yes, I'm concerned about the teeth themselves, but I want to know the etiology, the root cause of this issue, namely sleep apnea, right? So everything ties together. This is meth mouth, which is recreational use of methamphetamines. And now the mouth is very, very dry. All these bacteria are very concentrated, and you don't have proper salivary flow that protects the teeth. The patient gets really hungry. They eat easy to find foods, rich in carbohydrates, which is a perfect storm for rapid decay. So it's important to find the source of the issue and try to address it. Then you end up fixing the teeth. Okay, let's shift gears and talk a little bit about mercury toxicity. This is another dental diagnosis, as is galvanism. Galvanism is like a current. It's basically a little battery in your mouth. And a battery is basically two different metals, right? And then some kind of liquid medium, in this case, saliva. And when you have two different metals, one filling that was placed a long time ago, one that was placed more recently, they are not as similar and they create a little current. So that current is a very, very low current, but it could give you sensitivity to the teeth, which is one thing, but it also can sensitize nerves in your head and neck area. So that's when you may have some inadvertent twitching. You can have tension headaches, you can have neck pain. It's a nagging type of thing that happens all the time. More about that later on. Let's talk a little bit about periodontitis. Periodontitis is gum disease, periodontal disease, which is both gum related, but also it transfers into the bone. When you have inflammation around your gums, what happens is you have all these bacteria that cause toxins, and then they can actually cause the bone to melt away because of inflammation. And then you see some other diagnoses like halitosis, which is fancy for bad breath, edentulosum, which is missing teeth, candidiasis, which is a fungal infection, xerostomia, dry mouth, oral cancer, and also misaligned teeth. So all these are dental problems that we have. I'd like to talk a little bit about autoimmune disease. Many of us know that autoimmune disease is when your immune system turns against itself. It's trying to contain or kill this intruder or invader, but in doing so, it's causing collateral damage. So it's harming the bad things, but it's also harming the good things, your own human cells. Think of it as immune cell civil war, where you literally create specific autoantibodies, antibodies that are trained to go against your own cells, and they target them and they destroy them, causing disease. Now, is autoimmune disease genetic or is it environmental? Well, there's definitely a genetic predisposition. Let's face it, some people are just pre-programmed to have autoimmune diseases. It's a familial history and they inherit it from their family. You can actually do DNA testing to find out if you have the gene for a specific autoimmune disease. However, environment plays a vital role in autoimmune disease. Some people are exposed to environmental and nutritional triggers that cause this autoimmune disease to turn on. Well, this also says that if I do not instigate this trigger, I can maintain that autoimmune disease at a quiet level. Let's look into it a little bit further. There are oral triggers of autoimmune diseases, such as oral infections, when you have a microbiome imbalance, and all these things can act as triggers that will turn on these autoimmune diseases. And you see them here, more commonly diabetes, Crohn's disease, which is a GI issue, lupus, pemphigus, lichen planus, which is a skin condition, Sjogren's syndrome, which affects glands, sweat glands, salivary glands. So we have genetics and we have triggers. Think of them as DNA mutations that predispose one to these types of autoimmune diseases. However, because they require an environmental trigger, without this trigger, that disease stays quiet. It sleeps. It stays dormant. Okay, it's kind of like shutting down the apps on your phone, and it's never expressed. Well, that's good enough for me. If you don't express that disease, I don't care if you have the genetic predisposition because you don't show that disease. So let's look at oral infections as triggers. One very common oral infection is tooth decay. That's right. Tooth decay is actually an infection. It's caused by bacteria. It's caused by strep mutans. Now, we know when we have strep throat, it's streptococcus that infects the pharynx, and we have a treatment for that. In a strep throat situation, we would give antibiotics. Well, when strep infects the teeth, how come we don't call it strep mouth? That's essentially what it is. However, the treatment is not the same. You don't want to use antibiotics. You want to be very, very smart about it and use biology to attack that. So it's not just about fixing the cavities. You need to treat the infection. You need to find out, why do we have this? Why is there an imbalance? Why is there an overabundance of bacteria that cause tooth decay? And how do we balance that out? And I'll show you how to biologically do that. Other oral infections have nothing to do with teeth directly, but they have to do with gums. These are gum infections. Periodontal disease has two components, genetics and environment, just like autoimmune disease. However, it's caused by aggressive anaerobic bacteria, and it's exacerbated by poor oral hygiene. So now you're ending up having inflammation in your gums, in your mouth, that enters the rest of the body. How? Remember, highly vascular tissues in the mouth, right? Gums, lining of cheeks, lips, tongue, the floor of the mouth. So you have periodontal disease, which makes you predisposed to systemic disease because you constantly are training your body to be inflammatory biased. You have these immune cells that are inflammatory biased. They just are overreactive. So the slightest type of inflammation, you have these immune cells that just go crazy. So you have chronic inflammation in the mouth, and then it goes beyond the oral cavity. It goes all over the body. Because as I said before, the mouth is a portal to the rest of the body, to the circulatory system, to the respiratory system, the immune system. And that basically translates in a diminished capacity to repair diseased tissue. That's not good. Let's pick on diabetes for a second. With periodontal disease, you have gum tissues that are constantly bombarded by bacteria. And you have these pro-inflammatory mediators and cytokines. These are substances or natural chemicals that we produce that communicate from cell to cell, and they mediate inflammation. Think of it as a biological walkie-talkie, where one group of cells talks to another group of cells. And I'll give you an example. When you have a barbecue and you have some food that goes down on the ground, what happens is you have a little ant that goes around and smells the food and tries to eat it. He gets excited, so he releases these signals. And these signals go across distances, and he tells his buddies, and now he's recruiting more ants, and now you have a swarm of ants within a minute or two that are eating this leftover that went on the floor. So they're using these mediators to communicate with each other, the chemical mediators. Same thing happens with cells in our body. So when you have inflammation in the mouth, it actually communicates to other cells, and it translates to inflammation all over the body. If you look at this diagram here, you have gum disease, which is an infection in the mouth, and that makes you 3 times more likely to develop gum disease if you have diabetes. So if you have diabetes, you're very, very prone to having gum disease. But it gets worse because gum disease can lead to higher blood sugar, and that makes your diabetes worse. And you have diabetic complications. It makes it harder for your body to fight these infections, including gum disease, which is an infection. And it keeps on going on and on and on. It's a vicious cycle. Interesting statistic here. 1 out of 4 diabetic patients have periodontitis. When you have poor blood glucose control, uncontrolled diabetic, you have an increased gum disease. When you have gum disease, you can't control your blood sugar, and that's when you get diabetic complications. That's that vicious cycle. But having gum disease is one thing. Look at what else it leads to, right? Retinopathy, eye problems, coronary artery disease that can lead to heart attacks or mini strokes. That basically ties in the brain health, right? So it can all arise from a dental infection, from a gum infection that can actually travel to the brain. Nerves, I mean, diabetics are notorious for having neuropathy. So you see all these complications, right? You can't taste your food properly. You're more at risk for infection. You have poor wound healing. Your mouth is very dry. You don't have enough saliva. Now you're having more cavities. And it's just a vicious cycle. So there are certain things that I recommend. You heard about vitamin D, obviously calcium. K2 is another. great vitamin. These are fat-soluble vitamins that are great for your immune system and really great for healing the mouth and all over the body. But I can sit here and preach that you should take all these vitamins, right? But inflammation is a roadblock to nutrient absorption. Inflammation interferes with you absorbing these nutrients. So here I am, I'm preaching to you to take all these vitamins like calcium, vitamin D, K2. You can't absorb it. You may take these supplements, but you can't absorb it, and they won't be able to go where it needs to go. So when you look at the mouth, I'm trying to come up with a good regimen for you so you can be healthy and you have strong bones around your teeth and healthy teeth. But without you absorbing these, you are having continued bone loss. You have gum degeneration. The collagen around the connective tissue between your teeth and your bone breaks down, which leads to loose teeth and leads to more oral problems. And this biome imbalance continues. So there's a lot of things that we're talking about here. And if you can't see it, you can't diagnose it, you can't treat it. So you need to have some advanced diagnostics. And you see some of them here. Digital radiography. Most of our colleagues, dental colleagues right now, have digital radiography. Some programs are better than others. Intraoral cameras. These are small little pen cams that can actually zoom in to teeth, and they have different modes, so you can detect if there's hidden decay or if there's hidden plaque or other issues. And this is a great communication tool because now you can see what I can see, and we can come up with a diagnosis together. So now we have an invested interest, right? A vested interest in your health. Transillumination is a high-tech way to really illuminate a tooth. It uses fiber optic light to flood the tooth with light, and now you can see something developing, like a small little cavity that is the same tooth. You can't really pick up on a digital radiograph, digital x-ray. So digital x-rays are really great. They show us more information than old-fashioned x-rays, and they use very, very low radiation, but they don't show us everything. So it's great to have other tools in your armamentarium. A periodontal exam, something very basic. You need to check around the gums. Velscope is a oral cancer detection tool. It uses fluorescence that actually goes through the skin or the oral cavity, and it actually allows us to see if something's hiding underneath it. So if this normally looks pink, under this special light, you'll see something dark, which is suspicious. So I'd rather be able to detect something super early where I can treat it and cure it than wait for something to be a big problem. So cancer is totally treatable in the mouth if you catch it early. And these are great tools. We also have minimally invasive kits where you can take some samples. It's called the brush biopsy. So there's many different diagnostic tools that we can use. This is one of my favorites. It's a three-dimensional cone beam CAT scan. Think of it as a dental scan. Everybody knows what a CAT scan is. This is like a dental scan, which uses negligible radiation compared to a regular CAT scan. It's almost like a flashlight of a beam that goes around your head. It takes about 15 seconds and very, very ultra low radiation, but it gives you a lot of information. It's a three-dimensional scan. So now you can look at teeth at a cross section and figure out where issues may arise. So is the infection towards the outside or is it towards the inside? How can I approach it? It's kind of like my GPS. I can find out if there are hidden infections that are constantly nagging at your immune system. So your immune system can't focus on more important things. It's actually trying to keep something at bay, like a bad root canal or something like that. Incidentally, root canals are not simple straight lines like you see here. If you look at a cross section, they have many different configurations. So there's a special way that we can thoroughly clean them, and I'll tell you a little bit about that later. There are other advanced diagnostics that we use, like diagnostic lasers. Diagnostic lasers, think of them as depth finders, and they can actually show us if there's a hidden cavity and how deep it is. You can actually quantify it and find out in numbers if it's a small, medium, or large, or somewhere in between. A salivary analysis is a very low-tech, but very, very informative and helpful tool because remember how we started the conversation as why me? Why do I have all these dental problems? Well, maybe it's because your saliva is not a high quality saliva. What does that mean? At rest, do you produce the necessary amount of saliva that bathes your teeth and cleans them and protects them? What is the pH? Maybe you have a naturally acidic pH. Well, that you already started below par. What about the viscosity? Is it really, really viscous? Is it really, really thick? That's not good. Is it really, really watery? That's not good either. What about its buffering capacity? Are you able to take an acidic environment and buffer it and bring it back to a more alkaline pH? What about stimulated saliva? Are your salivary glands compromised where even when you're chewing on sugar-free gum or paraffin wax, you can't generate the necessary amount of saliva? So you can play detective and figure out exactly what the problem is. Then you can find out the solution. I'm a huge fan of minimally invasive, biologically inspired advanced treatment. For example, we spoke about oral flora, which is bacteria. We all have bacteria in our mouths. There's no such thing as let's kill all the bacteria. That's not realistic. You want to modulate, right? Or modify. So if you have an imbalance of your microbiome, too much of this or too much of that, aerobic, which causes cavities, anaerobic, which causes gum disease, right? Aerobic, they like oxygen. Anaerobic don't like oxygen, and they hide under the nooks and crannies of your gums. Well, if I use a specific oral probiotic, I can actually modulate the population of these bacteria. And I use the term good bacteria, bad bacteria. That's not a very accurate term, but I want to get more of the anaerobic bacteria or more of the aerobic bacteria, because if I oversimplify oral diseases, basically you have cavities and gum disease. So if you have predominantly cavity producing bacteria, let's allow the other guys to thrive so we can balance that out, and vice versa. So oral probiotics, you have these harmless bacteria that are freeze-dried. You put them in your mouth, they reactivate, so to speak, and now they're competing for the same nutrients that the bad bacteria are competing for, effectively modulating that ecosystem, if you will. Remineralization is a beautiful concept. It's a paste. It's called MI paste. MI for minimally invasive, where you're providing calcium phosphate into the mouth, which increases alkalinity, right? So it balances out that acidity. It decreases sensitivity because it insulates your teeth. It strengthens your teeth, and it can actually decrease or even reverse cavities. Think about this. If you have tiny, tiny little small beginning of a cavities, if you will, and you flood it with mineral, that will reverse. So I'd rather treat it biologically than wait for it to become a deep cavity and then have to drill it. So that's biological treatment. Xylitol is a naturally found sugar, which cannot be metabolized by these cavity-producing bacteria. So they kind of starve to death, if you will. So we're trying to modulate it, doing it that way. But it also stimulates more saliva, which naturally fights cavities and controls your oral biome. The Cliff Notes version to oral optimization nutrition is right here. Vitamin K, E, A should be in here too, D, B, and C. K, E, A, and D are all fat-soluble vitamins. C and B are water-soluble. But all these are great for your immune system, and it's great for having good, strong bones around your teeth, healthy gums that are tight around those teeth, and healthy, strong teeth. Let's talk a little bit more about biomimetic and technologically advanced treatments. We use ozone here in the office, which is O3, right? O2 is oxygen. When you introduce another oxygen molecule, you get O3, and we actually have a machine that creates it here. There are some machines that you can have at home, so you can make your own ozone. So why ozone? What does ozone do? Well, ozone will kill bacteria, fungi, and viruses, but it won't do anything to your own human cells. So if we want to disinfect things, we want to use ozone. And you can use it at home as you're cleaning your teeth, But we also use it during treatment, whether we're doing a debridement, periodontal treatment, cleanings, even surgery. Hydrogen peroxide is something that breaks down into water and oxygen. And that's wonderful for someone that has periodontal disease or someone that's prone to periodontal disease. If you have bad breath, you can also help with that. And you can actually create your own slurry, almost like your own toothpaste. You put some hydrogen peroxide, some essential oils like peppermint, frankincense, or eucalyptus oil. You put some baking soda, and you can put some coconut oil. When you mix those together, you have a nice, holistic, all-natural toothpaste. Hydrogen peroxide will help whiten your teeth as well, and it'll control those anaerobic bacteria naturally. Essential oils also control inflammation, and they are bactericidal, so they kill bacteria. And baking soda is a nice way to create a little bit of an abrasive powder where you can polish off stains on your teeth. Other biological treatments are platelet-rich fibrin. When we have small defects around your teeth, you can see them here, where we have some bone loss. What we could do is we can draw some blood, spin it, separating these fibrin molecules, right? So you have platelets, and they're rich in fibrin, which speeds up the healing properties. Essentially concentrating your healing potential and moving it into an area where we need to regenerate and reconstruct. And this is a nice natural way. It's an adjunct to really speed up the healing. And we have phenomenal healing with this, which works really, really great. I spoke a little bit about snoring and sleep apnea. There are simple orthotic appliances that are used for TMJ and sleep apnea. It gently brings the lower jaw forward, which opens up your airway. And I'd like to think that we've saved some lives, because a lot of times patients don't get the necessary oxygen and they have seriously life-threatening effects. So you can actually save lives by a simple appliance like this, and you can also save marriages, because a lot of times when people are snoring, their significant other has to, go to the couch, or vice versa. We spoke a little bit about amalgams and mercury, and there is a safe way to remove amalgam, because let's face it, we used to think that you're exposed to mercury when you're having the metal filling placed and when you're having the metal filling taken out. More recent research shows us that throughout the course of that filling, the life of that filling, as you're chewing and you're rubbing food together around that, it generates heat and it has mercury fumes come out of it. So when we take it out, we have to take every precaution to minimize your exposure to mercury vapors. So it's the vapors really that's the most dangerous thing. It's not the chunks of metal that we break apart. So you have to use a special barrier like here, and also a nasal hood that protects your nose. And we have oxygen flowing through this nasal hood. And once this is taken out safely, there's also a chelation protocol, a detox protocol that we do after. But my preference is that patients see Dr. Roberts first, so that she can detoxify you, she can prepare your body so that your body is ready for detox, and then we take it out. And you don't want to take out all the silver fillings in one sitting. You want to do it strategically so you don't overwhelm your body. But you see here some of the things that we use for that detox protocol. But we spoke a little bit about root canals, and there are more recent advances in that type of treatment where we use three-dimensional disinfection using laser photo-induced photoacoustic streaming, which is basically a light energy that volatilizes the solutions that we use to clean and disinfect the system inside the tooth. And it basically causes effervescence. Think of it kind of like Alka-Seltzer, and it brings all those bad things up to the surface so we can suction them away. So there are ways that we can do a more enhanced cleansing of that root canal to really maximize our success rate. But there's also lasers that we use for gum treatment or minimally invasive gum surgery. And we also use it for biostimulation. That's almost like healing in a box, right? So you use this laser and it recruits your immune cells so you optimize your healing and you shorten your healing time. And I've seen some remarkable results with that. Technology is something that we use all the time, and it is something that's ever evolving. And CAD/CAM is something that we've been using for over 25 years in dentistry. CAD/CAM is computer-aided design, computer-aided milling, and it's a nice, conservative, precise, and biomimetic way to restore teeth. Sometimes we have a broken tooth or a tooth that was compromised by a large filling that was failing or it had decay, and we can actually create porcelain fillings that fit perfectly, and they blend in very, very naturally. And oftentimes we can do them in the same day. Sometimes we have tooth loss. Sometimes it's unavoidable. No matter what you do, whether it's trauma or periodontal disease, sometimes we have to have a tooth taken out. And we do have options to replace those teeth. Dental implants is a great treatment modality where we can replace these teeth for proper function, for proper speech, chewing, aesthetics, and to maintain that facial vertical dimension. A lot of times you see people that have no teeth and it looks like their face is almost caved in, right? Because we don't have that three-dimensional support. And with the advent of technology, we can do all this planning digitally, virtually, where we do that cone beam CT that I talked to you about, and we scan the mouth with a digital camera, and we put those two data sets together. And with our software, we can actually plan digitally our surgery. So in a short appointment, kind of like an hour, you can place multiple implants with minimal to almost no discomfort. A lot of times I see patients that are adults, and whether they had braces before and didn't wear their retainers and their teeth shifted, or maybe they never had braces and teeth are shifting throughout the course of our life, because the mouth is a very vigorous environment. We're having something super hot, something super cold, something hard, something acidic. So as the teeth wear, they do shift a little bit. Teeth constantly move a little bit throughout the course of our lifetime. So a lot of times it's difficult to keep things clean when you have very, very crowded teeth. So sometimes we do it for function, sometimes we do it for aesthetics, but we do have clear aligner therapy available in dentistry today. You've heard of Invisalign. There's another company called SureSmile. Some of them are, I call them do it yourself, and you see some commercials like Smile Direct Club, which can work for small discrepancies, but when it comes to a more comprehensive case, you just want to be very careful and ask your dentist about it, because sometimes you can cause more damage than good. But clear aligners are great because every 2 weeks you use a different aligner, and little by little you can, in as little as 6 months, you can have a beautifully straight smile. Lastly, I want to talk about phobia, dental phobia. Sometimes we have patients that are so phobic, they avoid the dentist for 10 years or more. And through no fault of their own, they have this neglect and they have multiple dental issues. How nice would it be to take care of all those issues in one visit with sedation dentistry? And there's different types of sedation dentistry, but you want to make sure you pick the one that's right for you if necessary. I talk about oral optimization, and oftentimes people don't really know what that means. Well, in my eyes, it's what you see here. It's modern oral care, customized for each particular patient, not using a cookie cutter approach, something for everybody. It's really whatever that particular patient needs, and just that. It has to be minimally invasive. It should be biomimetic, like we talked about before, probiotics, using biology against biology so we can get the results that we're looking for. It's about identifying and resolving oral infections by using advanced diagnostics, like I showed you earlier. Early detection is the key. Prevention is even better. And an example of that would be salivary analysis, which can give us some clues as to what's going on in that particular patient's mouth. And the strategy should always be to prevent and manage chronic conditions. For my friends that attended the lecture today, what I'd like to do is offer something really, really valuable, because I value your time. I would like to offer a comprehensive oral examination. You've heard me talk about multiple different things today. It's a $600 value offered to you for only $60, but I can only limit it to the first 6 attendees that respond. And it would basically be a consultation for oral optimization using advanced diagnostics, as you see here. Maybe doing a 3-dimensional digital scan, if that's appropriate. If we need to identify some hidden infections, we can use a fluorescence-enhanced oral cancer screening, like you heard me talk about earlier. So what I would recommend is that you either call or click at your earliest convenience. You can go to esihealthydentistry.com, and you can click on the blue bar, and I'll give you the promo code, which is ESI60. And as an added value, I would offer you the family discount, 50% courtesy towards any product. We spoke about MI paste, which is that mineral paste, calcium phosphate. It's an alkaline paste. You heard me talk about oral probiotics, a great way to naturally fight cavities and gingivitis, also freshen breath and create naturally white teeth. Antibiotic support GI probiotics is something that's really specific. We use that only for people that have to take an antibiotic. You take this special probiotic to make sure that your GI tract is protected, so we don't have any other opportunistic infections. And xylitol gum is a great way to naturally fight cavities, freshen breath, and make sure that you have healthy gums because it stimulates saliva. Again, my name is Jimmy Killimitzoglou. I am in Smithtown. This is my contact information here. You can also put it on a chat box. And I look forward to chatting with you, and we can actually talk and answer some questions.
Awesome, Dr. Jimmy, thank you so much. That was excellent. And so we're going to stick around here for as long as you want us. Dr. Jimmy and Dr. Roberts will give away a copy of this book to their favorite participants. And I've just like one of the things here is with cancer therapy. As you know, if someone develops cancer, the approach is pretty barbaric. It's chemotherapy, it's surgery, it's hospitalization, it's heavy duty medication. But right now, what they're developing, and there's a whole big exciting thing happening in the science world. There's something called CAR T therapy. It's called the chimeric antigen receptor. And what they do actually is they infuse the T cells in the body. So the T cells go after that particular cancer. So it's kind of an immunotherapy on steroids. It is pretty remarkable what modern science is doing. And these guys are investing a significant amount of time and money into human optimization. So just like I mentioned before, you have all these billionaires going into space. Now a lot of money is going to go into human optimization and longevity. He talks about living to 200 years as a possibility. It's a long time, but it's interesting as a possibility. So I know you're going to enjoy the read, but we'll stick around here and we'll discuss anything you want to discuss. I know we had some questions before from some of the people. Let's see. Are carbohydrates bad for the teeth? Gajan was asking.
Great question. So carbohydrates in moderation, right? The quick answer is you can eat whatever you want to eat as long as you have good oral hygiene. Obviously, I would prefer that you have a well-balanced diet, but there's no straightforward answer to that, because if you eat celery has carbohydrates. That won't cause cavities though, right? Because it's mostly fiber. So raw vegetables, I'm a huge fan of. But if you're having processed carbohydrates, simple carbohydrates like candy, I joke around. I said, you know what? I'll allow you to have a pound of candy if you can eat it in 10 minutes or less, because then you'll have a time to buffer and then wash the carbohydrate away from those teeth. It's the frequency of the carbohydrates. If you take your coffee black and you sip it throughout the whole course of the day, it doesn't have carbohydrate in it. But if you have sugar in your coffee and you sip it throughout the whole course of the day, you'll get cavities. If you do the same, but you drink it within 5 minutes, no problem. It's about the frequency, because you need time for your pH to go above 5.5.
Shelby would like your limited offer. She was excited about optimizing her oral cavity. That's awesome, Shelby.
You're in.
She would like the book. Awesome. Dr. Jimmy, I think it's Barbara. What do you recommend to put in the water pick? What
Great.
do you use? What do you use for oil pulling?
Excellent, excellent. So let's talk a little bit about that. So a water pick, for those of you who don't know, it's a oral irrigator. Think of it as a motorized squirt gun that flushes your gums and your teeth. And a couple of things that you could do, if you do have gum disease, you might want to put a little bit of peroxide in there, right? Not full peroxide, because then it's going to foam a lot, but you put a little bit of peroxide there. You can also put a couple of drops of your favorite oil, essential oil. I would recommend eucalyptus or peppermint. 1 or 2 drops, that's all you need. The other part of your question was essential oils, which is essential. So peppermint, eucalyptus, and coconut oil, great stuff.
Awesome. Gajan wants to know what can be done to improve mineral absorption in the body.
I can speak to that. Well, there's a few different things, but I think the major thing is making sure that the gut is working well. If the gut is leaky or inflamed, then the absorption rates go down significantly. So if there's dysbiosis, meaning there's an improper balance of good bacteria versus bad bacteria in the gut, that can be a big part of it. There's some major disruptors that disrupt the gut: alcohol, sugar, toxins, different things like that, that as you do eat those over time, the gut becomes more overpopulated with candida, funguses. So what you're eating is also feeding the bacteria in your gut. And if the gut lining is inflamed, that's gonna decrease your absorption. And then also the quality of the supplements. So if your gut's working well, if the structure and function of the body is working well to be able to absorb, then you want to look at the quality of the supplements you're taking. There's certain supplements that are specifically enhanced to make sure they're well absorbed. Or the foods that you're eating, oftentimes even our vegetables from Whole Foods are grown in soil that's bereft of minerals. So you want to make sure that you're either getting vegetables that are grown in good soil and have minerals, or you're taking supplements that are really well absorbed. Trace minerals are really great. They're liquid. Finding things that can be absorbed by holding them in the mouth, go straight into the blood. So you can also improve the absorption that way.
That's awesome, Dr. Roberts. Thank you. Mariella has a question. What is the cost of the lab test for determining the levels of toxins in the body? So Marielle, thank you for asking. I'm going to answer that for you. So the way it works is we assign a nurse practitioner to work with you. The nurse practitioner works under one of the top, the top medical doctors like Dr. Roberts. There's also Dr. Erica Schwartz. And those doctors have access to the most brilliant longevity specialists and doctors in the world. So you're going to get information and you're going to get care like people that pay $2,000 for the initial visit and $1,000 a month membership fee. So the way we structured it is for the initial consultation, it takes about an hour. Then we send the phlebotomist to your house or office. They take the blood. That's usually covered by your insurance, the blood work. Then they create a treatment plan, get together with you and explain all the numbers and what everything means. So that part, regular price, is $650. And then it's $150 a month for 12 months for the optimization process. These are regular prices. We are offering, as we develop this program, $350 for that initial part, that whole initial part, which takes like 4 hours. And then $87.50 per month for the first 12 months. But once you're optimized, once we identify any of these deficiencies, toxicities, digestive function, any of these things that are interfering with optimal function, and we address them, you're going to feel like you felt when you were 20, because I experienced that myself, and it's just life transforming. So thank you for asking. I'm going to send out a question assessment form to everyone, and if you're interested, fill it out. We'll schedule the initial consultation, and if it's something you want to pursue, it'll be the best money you ever spent on yourself. Well, yeah, because the entire system right now profits from your sickness and disease. So the average person is spending over $20,000 a year on this health insurance, which has nothing to do with health. And like I mentioned before, the only time your doctor through your health insurance can access the money there is when you develop some kind of a chronic illness. So once you develop, God forbid, cancer or diabetes or autoimmune condition, then they can medicate you, see you for 3 minutes, and not address the underlying cause. That is an awful, ridiculous, backward, antiquated system of uncare. What we want to do is create a system of optimization where we focus on longevity, where we focus on identifying deficiencies, toxicities, silent root canal. Like a silent root canal, nobody's going to look for that. You can be diagnosed with whatever they're going to diagnose you with. Nobody's going to talk to you about your mouth. Nobody. But many of these problems, like Dr. Jimmy so eloquently explained, begin in the mouth because we get so much intervention in the mouth. And a lot of the doctors, if you go through Medicare, Medicaid, health insurance, are incentivized to do major intervention. Perverse incentives. It's an awful system. It's a dangerous system. And I encourage you to find a better way. So we spoke a little bit about a lot of things. I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about, let me see what else I have. Gajan has a question. What is the root cause of people snoring? Shouldn't a healthy person be able to breathe normally and not snore without needing to add anything to the mouth to enable more oxygen to go in?
Yeah. You want to go first? Go second?
I'll go second.
Okay, cool. Well, my 2 cents on this one is, the root cause of snoring could be multiple things. A lot of times people have sleep apnea or snoring because those muscles in the mouth, the throat, all the way down become unexercised. They become weak, essentially. And when you sleep, they can collapse. And that causes the body to try to fight to get air, and it makes that snoring noise. Typically, this can happen in overweight or obese people because they have more weight on their breathing apparatus while they're laying down, but it can also happen in thin people if those muscles become weak. Actually, playing the didgeridoo, which is a crazy instrument, actually strengthens all those muscles and actually can treat snoring at the root cause. I don't think that's the only cause, and I'm sure Dr. Jimmy can talk to more. I know the tongue sometimes swells in the back of the mouth. There's also, I think, some adenoids, or your lymph nodes can be enlarged from different infections that can block structurally. But off the top of my head, those are the first few things I'm thinking of.
You nailed it. I really don't have much to add.
Gold star.
Gold star. Yeah, sometimes it's something weird, like anatomically, your airway is thinner than it should be, but most of the time, it's the most commonly, it's what Dr. Roberts just mentioned.
Awesome. So, a question always comes up, do we take health insurance? And I think it's an important topic to discuss because, health insurance, the way it's structured today is once you develop some kind of chronic illness, then you go to the doctor and the doctor will see you for basically 3 minutes because that's all the insurance will pay them to do. And in that 3 minutes, they'll identify a symptom and give you medication. That's the model today. But it's an awful model. And, if you, like Dr. Jimmy was talking about, if he's able to find a cavity that's a baby cavity, and then remineralize it so that you don't have to drill your teeth. Because once you start drilling and once you make that kind of intervention, you're beginning, you're starting down a slippery slope, because any intervention, any surgery puts a lot of stress on the body. And if you can optimize the mouth like that, it's the most fantastic thing. And that's how Dr. Jimmy works. He works directly with his people. He's got, 4,000 clients. He's a very, very busy doctor. He works with some of the top integrative doctors who go to him and send them clients. So he is in high demand by the people that understand that quality healthcare cannot be done through a bureaucracy. You have to work directly with your doctor if you want truly, care in the idea of what care, the word, means. Because you cannot be in the system of healthcare if you're just a number. And that's what you are there. I mean, if you've been to the hospital lately, the emergency room, it's a zoo. I mean, this is what you're paying money for, but it's being so redistributed and misused and abused. It's awful. So, we need to create our own system of healthcare that's better, more proactive, and focuses on optimization rather than managing deterioration.
Amen.
All right. Any other questions? Let's see what we got here. Great. Well, I think we did a good job. Anything else you guys want to discuss a little bit? You want to discuss in a little more detail?
No, I think we had a good conversation here.
One of the things I think is important also is that the cone beam scanner, and you addressed it. I just want to kind of highlight the fact that the cone beam scanner is one of the few tools out there that can actually detect a silent tooth infection. So we spoke about inexplicable weight gain and a silent tooth infection. What we're saying is that when the body has issues like an infection, like the digestion not functioning or absorbing minerals and vitamins, like heavy metal toxicity, like mold, then no matter what you do with your diet, if you stop eating completely, which you can't do for too long, but if you do, then that's the only way you're going to actually lose weight. But then it's the first thing you put into your mouth, you're just going to gain 3 pounds. So it's not an ideal weight loss. So that when the body is optimized, when all the filters are clear, when your mouth doesn't have any infections distracting your immune system, your body can function like it did when you were a young person. And that would be the ultimate goal here. Gagan, this is cool. I'm learning Ayurveda for similar reasons, to be able to optimize my body before there is a disease. Well, awesome. I mean, there's a lot of different modalities, but I think what's important is that you create a lifelong relationship with someone that knows your numbers, that can encourage you to do what's necessary, like a optimization coach. And based on your blood work, based on your DNA, they know how to help you circumvent what they say is inevitable health issues. And wherever you find that for yourself, I think it's awesome. What water filter do you recommend? Well, we work with Jose Grulon. He did my water filtration system as well as Jimmy's. So I'll give you his information. He's pretty awesome. And I have a whole house filtration system. It's Hague system. It's like pretty intense. And also under the sink, I have like a 3 or 5, I don't remember, a lot of filters under the sink. And my water is pristine. And I think that's crucially important. Why does infection in mouth cause weight gain? How can you tell if root canals are causing weight gain? Barbara wants to know.
Yeah, the quick answer is your body is trying to wall off the infection, and it's too busy trying to do that. And you're not focusing on proper digestion, so you're having this inexplicable weight gain.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, the only other thing I would add is that when your immune system is constantly working on a chronic infection, now your immune system can localize, but it runs through your whole body. It runs through your whole bloodstream. So your whole immune system function is elevated everywhere, causing chronic inflammation. The chronic inflammation causes leaky gut, makes your body work harder. There's all sorts of things going on there that contribute to weight gain.
I just sent some information about Jose Grulon, Purified Solutions. That's his water filtration company. He's awesome. We're going to do an event with him separately so we can really share as much information as possible. How much water should one drink in a day? Gargan wants to know. A lot, I think.
Typically, I use your body weight in kilograms. So if you're a pounds person, us ethnocentric Americans here, you use your pounds divided by 2.2. So it's kilograms typically, and that works well.
All right, very good. So we're going to start wrapping up a little bit. I'm going to ask Dr. Killimitzoglou and Dr. Roberts to choose our winner of this excellent book, The Science and Technology of Growing Young. It's a bestseller. He just published it like a week ago. It's already a bestseller. And it's I can see why. It's definitely a lot of information, a lot of things I never heard about or didn't even think about. It's really, really a great book. So Dr. Roberts, you want to choose somebody?
Sure. Shelby was on there a whole lot during my presentation, communicating with me. Let's give one away to Shelby.
Dr. Jimmy?
My pick would be Barbara.
Oh, great. Well, guys, here's my email there. If you could email me your mailing address, I'll have Amazon deliver it right to your door, and you're gonna love it. Well, any final words, Dr. Jimmy?
Sure. I really am impressed with everybody here. I think you all have an open mind, so I would say keep that up. Never stop learning. And I like the fact that you're doing your own research. I mean, the fact that you're here says a lot about you and your commitment to your health. And keep it up. I think you should always take control of your own health. And just remember, it's a process. It's not a destination. It's a journey. So always learn, never stop learning, and never stop that quest for being healthy and staying healthy.
Awesome. Thank you. Dr. Roberts?
Yeah, absolutely. I will. I'll just echo that and say, I think a lot of our behaviors and our choice points start with our mind, the way we talk to ourselves, the way we treat ourselves, and oftentimes, if we can become aware of the way we talk to ourselves and those things, and start to move them in a positive direction, you'd be surprised how much your behaviors can change, and you can build new habits. And really, I guess a habit or a belief system is just a thought you keep thinking, right? So if you believe you can't, or you believe something's not possible, oftentimes if you just have the courage and the discipline to start changing that thought, you can start to create a new belief system, which creates a new behavior pattern, a new habit, and literally a new direction to your life. So just one thought at a time.
Awesome. And I would say that, a lot of times they educate us, they brainwash us. That's not for our own best interest. It's for the best interest of all these interest companies. And we want to make sure that we learn what it takes for our body to function optimally, develop relationships with people that can help us achieve that. And remember that, you look at a mountain, or you look at a beautiful, powerful ocean, or field of flowers, and you say how magnificent that is, how beautiful, how powerful. But sometimes we look in the mirror and we forget that we are the most beautiful, powerful, magnificent, buoyant creation on this planet. And whatever investments you need to make in your own self so you function optimally for the duration of your life, do it. Thanks so much, everybody. Feel good.